Hi everyone, Monique here. Welcome to Monique's Home, and we're going to talk about how to raise a reader. So I always get asked how I encourage my kids to read because Matina and Renee love reading. Like I never thought I would ever say stop reading to my kids, but I do. But I actually tell them to stop reading or to put books down because it's just taken over their day. But I'm not complaining. It's I think reading is always a good thing. I've always advocated for reading, even back when we had our preschool back in the Philippines. And even Rafael, he can't read yet, but he would really look through books intently. Did I say it right? Yes, I think so. Like he would really focus on books and it would really also hold his attention, and he will do it without me asking him to. It's really also one of his interests. So today we're going to talk about some tips as to how we can raise a reader, and I imagine there are going to be other videos in this topic, but today we're just going to talk about the basics. So tip number one is to start them young. So with all my 3 kids, I've read to them since they were newborns, like every night before they go to bed. Well, when they were younger too, since basically all I was doing in a day is taking care of them. If they're newborns, then we read at any time of the day. But the key there is to expose them to books and reading books as early as possible. And it doesn't always have to be, books that are expensive that you buy at a bookstore. It can even just be books that you have at home. It's really just them getting used to hearing the words. But if you are able to buy books, specific books for your kids, especially when they're young, choose ones that have really great illustrations, because they can't really read the words yet or the print yet. So what will really appeal to them are the pictures, lots of contrasting colors. People would often say like, oh, use black and white books when they're younger. I never really strictly follow that. I would really choose books according to if I feel like they are topics and themes that I really want to talk to my kids about. So it would mostly be about love and family in the beginning. But yeah, it's really just getting them into the routine, into the habit of making books a part of their everyday. Tip number 2 is to show them that you enjoy it yourself. So it would be great if you and the other adults in the house like reading too, or the other kids, older kids, like reading too, and they see you actually reading something. Now it can be tricky because like for our household, Russ, my husband, doesn't read at all. Like he doesn't. Like the other day, Matina asked him, "Daddy, do you like reading?" And then he said, I like buying books. And then Matina was like, okay, but do you read them? And then Russ was like, not really. And then Matina was like, okay, then why do you buy books if you don't read them? And then Russ was saying, oh, well, I buy books for you. So it's pretty tricky because Russ doesn't like reading at all. I love reading, but honestly, since I had Matina and Renee and then Rafael, I haven't really been able to read. I used to read books all the time too, like my kids, but I don't get to now because I don't have time. But the key there is really, even if you can't be reading a book physically and showing your kids that you're enjoying reading, to have a conversation with them about it. So even when Matina and Renee were younger and until now, I would always randomly talk to them about, like reading books is such a great, such a good activity, right? Like it brings you to so many places, especially now that we can't travel. Like you can go to magical lands or like go to a foreign country without you even leaving your house, and you see mythical creatures and meet all kinds of animals and all kinds of people. And really by just having that conversation with your kids, you get them excited about what's in store for them when they read. Tip number 3 is to make it part of your routine. So I did say earlier that to start them young. So this one, when I say make it part of the routine, then make it something that is constantly happening in the house. So we always have a bedtime routine, and I think most households do, because especially when they're younger, they need us to help them, go to bed. Like we remind them to brush their teeth. If I still like snuggle with my kids and wait for them to fall asleep. Well, Rafael to fall asleep before I leave. My girls, I don't really wait for them to fall asleep anymore because they're a little bit older. But what I'm saying is because we have that routine every night where I ask them to brush their teeth, we talk about their feelings and we do our prayers, then put in the story reading at that time too. So if it's part of the routine, if it's part of their schedule, then they tend to do it a lot more. If in the beginning it might not be something that's natural to them or something that they might not really like doing, but if you just keep at it constantly, it doesn't have to be an entire book, like it could be just a page. Just encourage them to make it part of a routine. It doesn't have to be every day. It could be like, oh, let's do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or maybe let's do it as a special family activity on a Saturday. Then that will just help your child get into that habit. My next tip is to choose books that interest your child. So it doesn't always have to be what you think your kids should be reading. It doesn't always have to be what the bookstore says is like hot for kids or like the bestsellers. Like think about what your kids are interested in. Like I know somebody whose child is really interested in making things up, like they watch a lot of YouTube videos and follow like a lot of experiments and crafts. Then get your book a kid on crafting. It doesn't have to even really be a story, but just getting them into that understanding that their interests can also be found in something that's on print, that's something that on paper, then just get them started on that. And now there's just so many books to choose from. There's so many picture books for preschoolers, for primary grades that talk about a variety of topics. Like there's Added to Scientists that can appeal to children who like doing lots of experiments at home. There's Ish, there's Dot for those who really like art. And there are so many books that have dragons, have dinosaurs, have cars that will really appeal to different interests. And if your child doesn't have the attention span really to listen through the whole book, or is not that interested to listen to the entire book, you don't even have to read all the words. Like when I was teaching preschool, sometimes we would tape pages together if the books were like pretty long, and like skip through some of the words, especially when they can't read yet really. It's really just for them to hear the story, the beginning, middle, and end, and to just get them interested in really finding an interest in something that's on print. My next tip is to just make books really accessible for kids at home. So we have it all over the house. We have a couple books in the room. We have a couple books downstairs. There are a couple of books in their play area. So really just make it part of their environment. And you don't have to push it. You don't have to say, oh, there are books there, but you have to read them. But really just it being a part of the environment that is so familiar and so comforting for them will entice them to maybe eventually pick it up. So the last tip that I want to talk about is not really getting the children interested in reading, but it's really more about them actually reading. What I find that has been most effective for my kids to get them to read by themselves is to really help with their self-confidence. So I found with Matina, because she's my first one, that she knew all the letter sounds. We were doing, putting the letter sounds together so she could read 2-letter words and 3-letter words. But then when I show her books that don't have a lot of text, even like maybe the Dr. Seuss books, that she would try and read them, but then she would feel, I could see the frustration because she couldn't get through the entire thing. And I was thinking, it's not that she can't sound them out, it's not that she can't read it, but she I think doesn't feel confident enough to get through it because there's just too many words that it's probably overwhelming for her. So I found this really great resource, and this is not a sponsored video, but it's just been really helpful to us. And they're called Bob Books. Oh, they're called Bob Books. So what I really like about them is that they are super short, as you can see, like super thin, and in each page you would have just maybe 2 words, or maybe just even 1 word, or here's a couple more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but it's very easy. The words are pretty simple, so the stories are not complex either. But when Matina first read this, her first Bob book, you could see her eyes light up, and she was just so proud of herself. And really, I think that's what pushed her, and that's what encouraged her to read some more, because she got through one on her own. So I think instead of pushing our kids to read whatever it is that we have at home, also just try to find things that will boost their self-confidence. Again, like what I said earlier, something that interests them. Now, these books don't really have complex topics, or the pictures aren't even that interesting, but when your child gets to the point that he or she can sound things out and just wanting to be able to do things for themselves, and I think these are really great resources to have. If you don't find them wherever you are, you could always make one up yourself. Like you could just say, the dog is on the bed, the dog ran to the man, things like that. So you could just totally make up your own and help your child feel more confident in his or her reading skills. Books are really the best resource that you can have for your kids. Reading is one of the greatest things that, the greatest gifts that you could give to your child. Reading with them allows them to hear how you sound words out, allows them to hear, the expressions in your voice, so they know also how to verbally express themselves with feelings and with appropriate emotions. And, when you just give them that gift of reading and they're able to go into different worlds and encounter different characters and see different problems and face conflicts and face different types of emotions, I think that's just really one of the best ways also that they can learn about the world and about themselves. So thank you again for being with me. If this is of any help to you, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to Monique's Home. Follow me on Instagram at Monique's Home, and I've posted a lot of free printables for you to use with your kids at home at www.moniqueshome.com under homeschool freebies. I will see you next time. Remember to make every day your own version of extraordinary, because it is your own unique family.